well, we said we allowed on Shabbat to take an animal, to put a leash on an animal. A leash is not considered carrying. It's not meaning it's not considered the animal. Seems like it will save trouble. What do you reckon I gotta do?
I don't know. Oh, you're hearing something else now.
You able to hear me, Aaron?
Yeah, I hear you, but I'm hearing something else in the back.
A lot of background. Morning. Let's see if we could have, maybe we could ask someone to help us out over here. Yeah. Let's see if we could have something. Would you have a second with the computers if it's like noise when I'm talking? You know what has to be pressed? If they hear if I'm talking and there's like background music coming in. Well, someone else you think? Sometimes on my end. I'm talking and there's like background music coming in. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay, here, thank you, no problem. You're able to hear me, Aaron, but just a lot of background music, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You can hear me, Ralph?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Okay,
Okay.
we'll deal with the situation as best as we can, right?
Mhm.
Maybe Adam will come in, we'll have it better. Okay, Mark is coming in. Okay, so we're on 54, what did we say, 54, A4. Shmuel. Good morning, Mark. Boker Tov.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Morning. Okay, the computer's making a little noise, background music a little bit. Maybe when our tech person walks in, we'll be able to remove any of that outside.
I don't hear it.
Okay, very good. So, Shmuel, we said that you're allowed to go ahead and pull the camel by the leashes on Shabbat in a public domain, because we said the leash of the animal, which is there to secure the animal, is not considered a load that the animal is carrying its leash. And therefore, it's not a problem for you to go ahead and an animal to go out on Shabbat with the leash on Shabbat. Now, the mission now qualifies something very interesting. But the rope that you're holding, you have to be careful not to wrap it around your hand, that the excess part that you have a amount of the rope that's dangling, whatever the word is, dangling outside your hand is a tefa. Tefach is around 3.5 inches or so, 3.7 inches. Is the question how much the tefach is? If it is dangling a tefa, it's a problem. Now, what's the problem? Rashi said, because if I'm holding the rope and the rope is dangling a certain amount, it looks like I am carrying the rope. It doesn't look like this rope is part of the leash, that this is from the leash of the animal. So therefore, don't give it, try to give pretty much almost no amount of space that's dangling around. You hold the rope, so therefore you won't hold the rope close to the animal in a way that the end of the rope is dangling down a tefa. That's what the Gemara says. And in the Shulchan Aruch, also it says that halacha. You're taking out an animal on Shabbat and you're drawing it with its reins. You have to be careful that the top of the rope does not go lower, dangle down a tefah. And when Mishnah Berurah, the Chavetzayin says, but he's basically going to point out a Gemara coming up right now. So the Gemara said, well, Tani be Rabbi Yishmael Tefachayim. Be Rabbi Yishmael, in the Yeshiva Rabbi Yishmael, he said you have to be careful that the rope doesn't dangle down 2 tefachim. Yeah, so not one tefach. So what? So and you're telling me that Shmuel said that you can't dangle down 1 tefach, even 1 tefach. I can't even have 3.5 inches. But the other, it's the yeshiva. In the yeshiva, they said that you have up to 7. You know, less than 7 inches. As long as it's not 2 tefachim, you're all right. And the Shmuel said himself, you just got to make sure that he's more strict. It sounds like it shouldn't even be a tefach. Make sure it's less than a tefach dangling down. But the Gemara said, "Amar Baye," but Baye will answer with the parent's contradiction. How said tefach? Shmuel said a tefach. The Tana did be Rabbi Yishmael Tefachayim, but yet in the yeshiva of Shmuel, you go to the yeshiva, you hear them talking
I found
about
my class.
tefachim with the
No, this is a different belt.
tefach. You have up to 2. You have to make sure it's not 2 tefachim, a little less than 2 tefachim. So the Gemara said, Shmuel halacha l'maaseh atul ashminim. Shmuel was telling us practical rabbinic. What's the practical rabbinic? Don't come to the rabbi. Rabbi, I am going out on Shabbat with my dog. How long? How much can I be careful that it shouldn't be dangling? That the rope shouldn't be dangling outside of my hand, dangling down. And the rabbi said, make sure it's less than a tefach. Make sure it's not dangling a tefach. Make sure it's not, because that's the problem. Because if you dangle a tefach, it looks like you're carrying the rope. And that's marit ayin. Or marit ayin, or, yeah, it looks like it. Good morning, Simon. Welcome back. Baruch Rofei Cholim. Morning, Murray. Simon is back better than ever. Okay. So the Gemara says, so there's something called this practical rabbinic. And now we're turning the page to Nun Dalet Amabet. 54b. Something called practical rabbinic, and it's something called law. The practical rabbinic, you tell a person, you have to tell a person a more stricter position here. Because if you're going to go ahead and you're going to give him a little too much rope to dangle down, so give it too much rope, so to speak, he's going to become lenient. Maybe he'll do more. You give him sometimes you give a guy a certain amount. He's not so particular, and he'll go ahead and it'll be even more lenient than he's supposed to. So therefore, you tell a guy up, you got a tefach. Up to it, make sure it's not a tefach. Time we're talking about the leash and the animal. If you're walking the animal on Shabbat, someone's walking, let's say, a dog on Shabbat, the leash he should not dangle down from his hand. You should not dangle down a tefach. It should be less than 3.5 inches hanging out. So therefore, it would come out that you should maybe I should use my sit. Would be a good example to use might be a good example. So if this is the rope, if the dog is on this side and this is the rope, right? So I got to be careful that it shouldn't dangle down. If it dangles down a tefach, it should be less than a tefach, because if it dangles down, it looks like I'm carrying the rope. Doesn't look, but if it's like this, then it looks much more like it's the leash of the animal, right? Doesn't look like I'm carrying. And the Mishnah Berurah says, because the Chaim also says that even though the Shulchan Aruch says you have a tefach, it should be less than a tefach, dangling down. But if a guy went ahead and he went out with a tefach, meaning he wasn't careful to be careful. He quotes Rashi. What Rashi said, he didn't do an isur. It's technically, it's not a prohibition to do less, there's no prohibition as long as it's less than 2 him. But we have to be strict with Hafila, that we tell the person he should not even go out 1 tefa. Okay.
Rabbi, usually
say?
a chain, a leash has a loop at the end. You know, it does not a flat, straight thing. It's usually a loop, and you put your hand in the loop.
Okay, okay, so that's a good thing. And if it's a loop, that means it's not hanging down, right? That's
Right,
what you're
right,
saying.
exactly.
That's very
Right.
good. It might
Mhm.
depend on the sophistication of the chain that you got. Correct. So that's
Usually
good
a
thing.
dog chain has a loop.
Right. So
Yeah.
now, being that's the case, but now I had the Gemara. It's a different question. But Tanya, the Gemara said, when we learned in the Braita, now it's Ravasi said, "Via minakaka tefa." It says in the Braita that that you have to make sure that that the rope, that the leaf, is raised above the ground, is off the ground a tefa. It's about 3.5 inches. You make sure the leash shouldn't be flat with the ground. When you're walking the dog, the leash shouldn't be flat with the ground. So what does it sound like from this Braita? As long as the leash is not hanging on the ground, laying on the ground, it's fine. Even if the Gemara would say, even if it's dangling, meaning it sounds like it could be dangling any amount, as long as you got that leash above the ground, a tefa. I think as long as it's above the ground, a tefa, you're fine. As long as you got it raised 3.5 inches, 3.7 inches or so, maybe you want to be more strict, 4 inches, you're good. But it sounds like that's the only condition. There's no concern about how much is hanging down. That's the Gemara's question. You just told me you can't have, you should be careful, it shouldn't be hanging down a tefa. It shouldn't be a tefa hanging down, but the 3.5 inches. And now the only thing we seem like the issue is you can make sure it's above the ground, the tefa. As long as it's above the ground, hanging all, above the ground, it sounds like it's not a problem how much it's dangling down. The Gemara says, no, there's 2 laws here. We're talking about the rope, there's 2 points. There's the rope dangling down, right? How much is dangling down? That you have to be careful. It shouldn't be a tefa dangling down. It shouldn't be 3.5 inches dangling down. Good morning, Murray. But then there's another halacha that even if you're careful about that, good morning, Mark, good to see you. Even if you're careful, you're going to be careful about this. It's not dangling down on this side. But the question is, I was careful. I had your rope, like you said, Ralph, the professional dog leash that I'm hanging. It's not hanging down at all, right? This is the leash. It's like this. But the problem is, I got to be careful that it shouldn't be such a rope that I'm in a way that the rope is wrapped. It's low. It's coming down to the ground. Meaning to say, the rope at all times should be above the ground. Besides the fact that it can't be dangling down a tefa, but also the space between, let's say I'm careful that it's not dangling down, right? It's like this, right, Simon? But it's between my hand and the animal's head. Right, Mark, you with me? What? Yeah, that's the issue with we need the technician to help us out. But between my hand, Aaron, and the head of the animal, I got to make sure that the rope stays above the ground. He said, between my hand and the camel, you can have as much space as you want, as long as the space between here and the head of the camel is raised above the ground, the tefa, because then it looks like the animal you're drawing the animal with that. Because then it looks like it's being used as a leash. Because if that's not the case, it doesn't look like a leash that it's serving the animal. It rather looks like it's just carrying. It looks like the animal is carrying the leash. Because it doesn't look like I'm holding. That's not apparent so much that if I'm holding it in my hand. And you see, it's above, it's raised above ground, so it's apparent that I'm holding it. But if the thing is flush, it's getting almost flush with the ground, it's within 3.5 inches of the ground, so it looks like the animal is just, it's just the animal is, looks like the, it looks like it looks like the animal is carrying it. That's what it says over here. So Hanaro said, he says, let's see, the Mr. Bura, Chazakaim says, because when it gets close to the ground, it doesn't look like the animal is being drawn with it, which would be because that will be permitted because right, it looks like the animal's carrying it. Right. Now, the Gemara continues. Mishnah continues. Ein chamor. Now on the Mishnah, on Nun Daled Amabet, 54b, 54b1. Ein chamor yotzei b'madat b'zman she'ein k'sura lo. We spoke about the saddle cloth. We had this earlier. That in order for the saddle animal to go out with the saddle cloth on Shabbat, the saddle cloth has to go ahead and be tied to the animal. If it's not tied to the animal, now we'll see is the problem maybe the saddle cloth will come off, but that's obvious, right? But we're saying that it has to be tied before Shabbat. Like even it means to say, even if you would tie it on Shabbat in a way that's not a problem of tying, there's a problem that one of the Friedman melachot of Shabbat is tying, right? We're not allowed to make a certain type of knot, but let's say you would make a certain type of tying that would not be a prohibited type of tying, like you tie your shoelaces, right? But if you tie it in a way that won't be prohibited, it's still. You can't tie it on Shabbat. So the Mishnah states that the animal can't. Meanwhile, we'll just explain the Mishnah in the simple meaning without getting into more detail at this point. The donkey cannot go out with the saddle cloth if it's not tied to the donkey. Okay, has to be tied before Shabbat. The lo bezug. Let's say the animal has a belt, right? Afahu pishu pakuk. Now, the bell on Shabbat, would not be appropriate for the animal to go out making noises, a whole musical on Shabbat. But even if the Mishnah says a chidush, even though you stuffed, you took some cotton and you closed the sound of the bell has no room to bang. Even so, you can't go ahead and go out with that on Shabbat. And we'll see the Gemara will explain what's the issue with that. V'lo b'sulam shebetzavareh, v'lo b'ritzua sheberaglo. Also, the animal can't go out with some sort of ladder around its neck. We're going to go ahead and explain what that means. And also, you can't go out with this strap that is tied to its foot. The Gemara is going to explain. Now, what's the prohibition for all these things? Besides the general prohibition is because some of these things might fall off. These items that we're talking about might fall off, strap might fall off, or this sulam, we'll see whatever the ladder that they put around the neck. But these are the type of items that people want, people are interested in. There's certain things that you have that, if it falls off, let it stay in the, I'll leave it there. I'm not going to carry it, right? Doesn't pay to carry. But these items that seem to be of significance, and therefore we're concerned that a person might come to carry them. That seems to be the reason why Rashi says the problem is. The Rambam, in his explanation to the Mishnah, says that the issue here is the animal carrying these items, that it's not considered part of the animal, and therefore the animal is a violation of carrying, not the animal is a violation, you're in violation, the animal is working on Shabbat. Now, the Eina Tanagolim, the chicken can't go out yet in the futin, the strings, the little bit was still on the straps of Raglehen, that's on their feet. The Einat Farim, and the males, the rams, the male sheep cannot go out. Yotzim ba'agala shetachat ha'aliyah shelahem. They would put some sort of, they put something underneath the tail of the ram in order to protect it from the ground. So you put it underneath, it's like a little cushion, so when it's walking, so the tail won't rub against the ground. So yet you said there are certain tails that that are long. They touch the ground. They go right to the ground, and so when these tails don't have, some of them don't have real bone. It's just fat and it's heavy, and they drag on the ground. And when they drag on the ground, when the tail lands on the ground, it gets scraped. In order to prevent this, they make some sort of like little wagon that they tie the tail to, and the tail rolls on this wagon, and the follower goes after the sheep. Oh, bless you. So this thing, the Mishnah says, you can't go out with this on Shabbat. And the sheep, the female sheep, can't go out with the chanunot. We'll see what the chanunot are. The Mishnah continues. They had a lot of different things for the animals, right? They had, the protective things, protective gear, whatever it was. The calf can't go out with the gimon on Shabbat. And the cow can't go out with the skin of the kuppah, right? So, what's that again? Right. So kuppah is the type. Right? They say what is a kuppah? Kuppah is the type of species that its skin, it has all these things that are very pokey, right? What do they call that? That animal? Like a porcupine. What do they call it? A porcupine, right?
Porcupine.
So the porcupine is very pokey, and if you want to go ahead and prevent, I think, the lesions from going ahead and going to nurse, go to the udders, the rodents, you go ahead and you want to stop other animals, rodents, from nursing from the cow, so they put some protective gear. They can't go out with this ora kupa, this leather, the skin of this porcupine. The lower two should be come out. And also, they can't go out with a string behind, between. Right. So it seems that according to Rashi's reason, Rashi says it wouldn't be the problem of carrying the animal carrying something. So like you said, it's preventing suffering, but these things fall off. And maybe it's common that when you put it on, it falls off, and you might come to carry it. You're not so much bit if the animal for a certain amount of time doesn't have, it's not something like every second you're going to be particular about. You might come carry it for a few moments, and therefore that seems to be the problem of this ora kupad to go out with, and also they can't go out with the strap between its horns, and the strap between its horns, that would be because of a masui. It's a load, it's a type of strap that's not common for beautification purposes, but then it'll be like melting into the animal. It's not something that's common. You put a strap there, you like a strap, you put a strap there, but it's not, let's say it's not, we'll see the Gemara, maybe it's not the normal way of adorning the animal, and therefore it'll be like a load on the animal. It's not affecting the animal anyway, the strap between its horns. Now, Paroto to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, but the Mishnah states that the cow of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, it went out with the strap between its horns, And the rabbis were not happy with it. So it seems like this text of the Mishnah, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah holds that it's considered jewelry, it's adornment, and therefore there's no problem for the animal, for the cow to go out with it on Shabbat. But the rabbis weren't happy. The rabbis felt he was more of a minority opinion. The rabbis felt differently, and they weren't supportive of such a thing. So the Gemara said, "My time." The first thing we said that the animal, the donkey, can't go out with the saddle cloth on Shabbat unless it is tied, and we said it had to be tied before Shabbat. My time, what's the reason? Kidamoron. The Gemara says, you know what? We already spoke about this earlier, so we don't have to elaborate on it now. That the Mishnah is telling us that if the saddle cloth was not, the chidush of the Mishnah is that the saddle cloth was not tied before Shabbat, you can't allow the animal to go out with it, even if it was tied on Shabbat. And we said because one reason is because if you tie it on Shabbat, it looks like you're getting ready to go for a long trip, maybe outside the boundary. That's one opinion of Tosfos, that you can't saddle it up. Maybe it looks like you're going to load the donkey, so don't put the saddle cloth on Shabbat. The low bezug, obviously fokuf, that it can't go out with its bell, right, Simon? It has a bell. Okay, I understand you can't go out with a bell on Shabbat, but you stuff the bell, right? The bell is not making any sound. But you know what? It's still the fact that you have bells on it. Bells is a decorative type of piece, you would think, but it's not a decorative piece that you use generally to as the regular adornment of an animal. A bell is usually when you put bells on, it looks nice to go to the market. We're getting ready to sell the animal. It looks like you're going to the market, because that's the way, when you want to sell the animal, you want to make it look nice. You put the bell on it. So that is okay. Now the Gemara. Now, really, I presume why? I mean, the bell. It is something that looks nice, right? It might look nice. It's adornment, but it's adornment for it looks like, but it's maritayin. Looks like you're going to do some business. Lo b'sulam shebesavoro. You can't go ahead and go out with the sulam that's around its neck. That the Gemara. Yeah, so let's say you want to decorate your animal that way, but it's not let's say we can explain it this way at this point. You want to decorate your animal this way. It's not the common way of decorating the animal, putting it. So that's how you want to adorn your animal. You can't. That's not good enough. No, that's not the kind. With selling it, you get the bells on. Mark, come on, you gotta get the bells out. The strap is not that doesn't do the trick, right? So then that's not the way they used to say it, right? That's why the Gemara doesn't say it's a maritime. It looks like it comes for business purposes. It looks like something else is going. Look, it doesn't meet the criteria of adorning the animal. But you know what? Rabbi Elazar says it is enough, right? Rabbi says it is enough of an adornment that the strap, a nice colorful strap, whatever it is, and okay, it's a big industry today. What they do for animals today became they sell toothbrushes for animals. The whole. You got to talk to. I know. We know someone who's in that business, right, Mark? Okay. Now the Gemara says v'lo b'sulam shevetavaro, and not with this sulam. We know Yaakov has his dream, right? Yaakov, he has a dream. He's a sulam. There's a sulam, and he sees the man, and the angels are going up and down. What is this sulam all about? Bein lo amar Avuna, bein lo ah. Bein lo ah is that these are boards that you tie to the cheek, near the cheek of the animal. So the cheek of the donkey. What are you putting these little boards, little wooden stuff, or boards by the cheek of the animal? When it has a wound, fascinating. When the animal has a wound, you put these boards as protection around, you don't want it to scratch the, with its teeth, right? Um, and scratch the wound. Its teeth. I know a child, a baby, about a year and a half or so, has eczema, right? So what the kid likes to scratch the eczema. He's a little kid. What do you want? The kid. He doesn't know better. Now the parents they don't know what to do. We got to. How do we stop the kid not to scratch the eczema? And he bleeds. So with an animal, what they did was they they would scratch. They would use their teeth and they didn't allow the animal to move its mouth. They put this. They put it into like a little brace, and the animal can't move its mouth. It can't go ahead and scratch that thing. The kid, it's like the parents put something around the fingers of the kid. I mean that to prevent it from scratching. Now, he said it can't go out with this Ritsua, the strap around its foot. What's the purpose? Why did they put a strap around its foot? Because sometimes the animal, the way the donkey walks, its feet would hit against each other, right? It's a slow walking animal, and because their steps are narrow, and the one hoof would knock into the other one, and that hurts, and that causes a wound to the animal. So therefore, right, but when we say you can't go out on Shabbat, what's the problem? Again, Rashi said the problem is these fall off. Especially when there's things going on, when things touch each other, hit each other, bang against each other, and you're walking and you're on the move, the animal moves. So they fall off, and they fall off. You might come to go ahead and carry it. So the overlay the gizra, you make it for that purpose. What you do is you make rings from thick ropes, and you tie it to the foot for the animal. So now you got like a little cushion, and therefore, so therefore it's not going to be banged. The foot won't directly bang against the other foot. That's the purpose of this. The aim is how to build your superfrutin. You don't. The animal can't go out with strings. What's the problem with the string on the animal? Because what was the purpose of the string? The avdilei simana, you made the simana kidei lechlafu. Let's say you put a red string, this guy put an orange string, this guy put a blue string. You know, this is my chicken, that's your chicken. But they don't have identification, they don't have driver's license of the chickens, right? And what's the identification? So they would put a string around it. That would be the siman that you'll be able to know, and you can't go out. Otherwise, you can't hold it. If your blue ribbon falls off, you're going to pick it up, and maybe it comes carry it, right? I'll tie it in a minute. It falls off. The animal's walking, and there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of action. It can fall off easily, and you might come to carry it. The lober is too. Now, what's the strap around its foot? The avilei keichad money. You don't want the animal to break utensils, and you tie the feet of the chicken, one foot to the other, with a narrow strap, but the animal can't go ahead and raise its foot and really bang on things and things to go flying and things breaking. In Baba Kama, we had a lot of discussion about it. When the chickens walk, they step on things go flying, and breaks things. So therefore, this, by the fact that you put the strap around, you would strap one foot to the other, a little loose, not tight, it has wiggly room, it could walk, but it can't really raise its foot in any real way. Therefore, when it steps on something, you're not watching that, you don't hold the animal by a string, it's walking around, it's stepping on things, things go flying, and now you have nothing to worry about. Everything, any glass things that you have in that area, you don't have to worry about something flying from the strength of the animal, when the animal steps on something. So, okay, we'll stop over here. We wish everyone a beautiful day. We welcome Simon and Mark back. And have a great day, everybody. And thank everybody that's on the screen. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Simon, so